Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today, the man who is thoughts become things, Neo-Positivity. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And we're also glad that we're zeroing in and we're on a Friday, coming in on the weekend and getting closer and closer to the Christmas holiday. So lots of preparations going on all around the world. People everywhere going nuts with the shopping and the baking and the cooking and the traveling and all that kind of stuff.
And the worrying.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah.
Because that's the one. On top of everything you just named was a big blanket of different worries.
Well, there's another kind too, because there are a lot of people who we kind of tend to forget about who actually don't have anywhere to go for Christmas for a variety of reasons, disconnected from family or living in locations where they can't get to someplace, or there are a number of different scenarios that can go on, but there are people who just can't do anything. And there are also some people, some really good souls, who will do special Christmas events, where they invite people who are away from families or something like that to come participate in something. In fact, Debbie G was talking, I think she's going to do something on Christmas. I believe she's having a virtual event for Spirituality Gone Wild followers and LOA Today followers and so forth, who are not, they don't have a family to go spend Christmas with. So, I mean, that's where the balance comes in. And it's really cool that there are people like Debbie G who do that. And Debbie G, if you're listening, we miss you. We hope you're healing up there.
I was about to say, shout out to Debbie G. # we love Debbie G.
Absolutely.
I'm not as fast with it as I normally am. I have the hashtags set to where I just push one button and then look, enter. And it's shout out to everybody.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
You said something that I think is a great way to start off the show. You know me, I like to go deep immediately. You're talking about balance. And when you said it, I start looking for a coin. I'm like, who has a coin laying around on their desk? So I reached over and grabbed my poker chip.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Life. Okay. You want to get away and make something out of yourself, travel, live somewhere other than the county that you grew up with. And all those things are great. They're great for the soul to see different places, move to a different state. But on the same note, come the holidays is the other side of the coin. It sucks. Where's near your family? It will cost a lot of money to travel, COVID, whatever the situation is. So it's like a gift and a curse. It's like everything has its own little upside and dark side. Because let me tell you something. I know a couple people. I've always known at least 2 or 3 people are spending the holidays solo, alone, just because of the situation, be it divorce and the kids are with the opposite, or they live on the other side of the country. My brother lives in New York, and he's going to be DJing for New Year's because he DJs on the side. So I mean, he's not going to spend New Year's by himself. He's going to be with a whole party full of people, but all of us are definitely missing him. Yeah. We're proud that he went to tackle New York. He's the first one in all of my family members to even attempt to tackle New York.
No kidding.
We were all in Jersey, which has its own little ups and downs, but New York is a different beast.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I have been in New York a million times in my life, but it was a different planet from what I experienced 2 weeks ago or last week whenever I was there.
Right. Well, you're also reminding me of something. We had a guest on Monday who I wished we had been able to get him on to Friday because he is a former NYPD police officer.
Oh, nice.
And I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if Neo and Vic were the two like sharing stories back and forth?
I actually, one of the buddies I fly with, he's a old New York police sergeant, and he's a hard ass. I mean, he's militant. He has a freaking cigar. He's like the stereotype of like a drill sergeant.
Yeah, right.
He talks like that. He walks like that. And so me and him get to chopping up stories. Like after we fly, we always go eat breakfast and we get to sharing stories. And the rest of the table is just like either their jaws on the floor or they're cracking up laughing or both, because most of our stories have both a jaw-dropping funny ending.
Well, you mentioned the hard drill sergeant there. I asked him, one of the things I asked, police officer Vic Ferrari was his name. And I asked Vic,
nice.
He also went to Catholic school. And I said, which was tougher, a lieutenant in the NYPD or a nun? And he said, without question, nuns.
None. Yeah, none. Listen, you don't see a lieutenant unless you did something really bad.
Yeah.
So you don't even see him. You don't see him during roll call. You don't see him during the week. You don't see him. You barely see him at all. Your sergeant, you only see in roll call, and in the middle of shift, they do what's called log check. So yeah, lieutenants don't seem that tough until you get together and you're in the office with one. A nun in school, that's 8 hours a day. 40 That'll mess with your head. Look, normal teachers, and that mess with my head, let alone some nuns with the extra rules.
Right?
Yeah, especially
Fact,
as
I
much
mean,
as I was chasing girls back then. Jeez,
I never went to Catholic school, but I always kind of imagined what it was like. And I actually had friends who went to Catholic school, so I had some data to draw upon. And I always imagined that the nuns kind of made up the rules as they went along. Like, there were certain rules they always followed, but I just got the sense that sometimes a nun would make up a rule just because she didn't like the behavior, and she came up with a rule to cover it.
I mean, Christianity been doing that since the beginning. No, I can't. You don't want nobody to be mad at me. But yeah, it just seems that way. That's so funny. But yeah, man, it's like life. For me, life just has these ups and downs to every aspect. Like the police. Everybody hates the cops until their shit gets broken into.
Oh yeah,
I always say with the curse word, because I need people to feel that. You hate the cops until you go outside and your car window's busted and your ashtray change is all gone.
Yeah.
Then you're, oh my God, where are you at? You need to get here. Oh my God, thank you for showing up. So it's like ups and downs. Everything's got that coin, man. Duality. In the beginning, there was nothingness, stillness. They call it the realm of non-existence. There's nothing there to describe, so you can't describe it. Science calls it the quantum field. Then all of a sudden, the Big Bang, or religion calls it let there be light, the first form of duality, something that exists. A light, opposite from the darkness. Existence, opposite of non-existence. And from that form, from there, everything has duality from there. Everything, even the smallest atom has a top and a bottom, the inside and out. Smallest micro particle, you know what I mean, can either exist or not exist. Everything has duality since then. So I like to key in on stuff like that and like really dive deep and dissect it. Like that's where I get most of my solid answers from. They're not from taking a problem and working my way backwards and solving it. I work my way backwards to the essence, and then I go back out. And that's where I find my answers at. And they're pretty good answers.
Yeah, well, I would imagine they would be. Yeah, well, that's not so different from what we do here on the show, because
exactly what we do.
Well, yeah, in some ways it is. But we get guests in, and we have co-hosts, and we have different people with different perspectives on topics, and very often the almost alarming thing is how often we're in agreement. So there's not a whole lot of room for conversation there. It's fun, it's exciting, but there's not a whole lot of tension going on there. But sometimes you do get different points of view on the same thing, and when that happens, it's like with anything else, it creates a tension, right? It creates a tension, cool. like between the sexes, there'd be a sexual tension, or between a parent and child, there's the parent-child tension, or whatever the situation is. There's a tension that gets generated by those two points of view, and I've learned to love the fact that when you can appreciate both of those sides, you learn about those points of view, and you learn about the points of view from the other point of view, if you know what I mean. Like, in other words, you learn to see through each other's eyes to the other side.
You gave me such a great, I guess, mental analogy when you said tension, because I'm thinking like me and you right now conversating. All of a sudden, obviously, we're all just one vibrating energy wave, but you're at your point on the energy wave, and I'm at my mental point on that energy wave. Although they're the same, we have our separation seemingly. And so let's say picture there's like a line flowing up and down between us, like a frequency, and all of a sudden there's tension. It gets strained out a little bit,
right?
All because of our
It can even
views.
become very jittery depending on how much tension
Yeah.
there is. Yeah.
So it's when as soon as you said tension, I'm like, that string of flow, of beauty, all of a sudden there's tension on it because we're opposing, and fight or flight mode has kicked in. No matter how small it, people crack me up when we talk about fight or flight mode and they say that they don't go into that. And I'm like, you don't understand. Fight or flight mode can be the smallest thing. You don't even realize it. Like, let's say you click the remote on your TV and it doesn't work. And you're like, man, this happened last week. The batteries must be dying. Right there, there's a sense of something's wrong and I need to fix it. Fight or flight mode has ensued. What am I going to do? Am I going to sit on the sofa and bait on it for another week or so? Or am I going to go get a battery? Do I want to go all the way to the store? So it could be the smallest thing that puts us in there. And that people, so to all those that, and I face this a lot, to all those that say they don't go into flight or flight mode, you're considering fight.
Yeah, real
flight
like,
mode.
You're basically saying there's a bear right next to me. That's what you're thinking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can get a bad email. You're in flight or flight. What am I going to do? Am I going to run from this email and go in the city, or am I going to fight my way through this?
Well, actually, we had an example of that here, not during a podcast, but after a podcast. One of the guests this week, I always try to include links to their website or their book or whatever it is. And in this case, I went to test the link after we were done, and the link took me to one of these malware porn pages. And I said, whoa, would you please click that link? Tell me what you see. So she did the same thing. Oh my God. But here's the real wild thing. We tried to do it again and it went to the right place. So whoever wrote this was really, really clever. They were writing it in such a way that was hard to detect and hard to prove that there actually was a problem going on there. And so we were going back and forth by email. I actually have a background with IT and websites and so forth. So I was able to kind of guide them through how to track it down and eliminate the thing. And I think we may have it eliminated now. But although this one was a tough one. But my point is that experience created attention. It wasn't fight or flight in the sense of the bear, but it was fight or flight like the email, because you're getting this really undesired result. Nobody wants their link to go to some porn page. That's not what the whole thing was all about, right? And now all of a sudden, oh my God, how many other people are clicking that link? How many other people are getting that? Oh, my business is in trouble, yada, yada.
I'm just going to offer this as food for thought, and then we could transition to a new subject if you want. But the last 3 times that happened to me, that person was hitting on me.
Oh, really?
This one, maybe. So anyway, welcome everybody to this Friday before Friday before the Friday before Christmas. No,
that's funny.
What's Jeffrey saying? I can't see the whole message.
Oh, Jeffrey was commenting on what we were talking about earlier about the nun and the lieutenant. He said, "Isn't that what authority always does? They make it up as they go to stay in control."
Yeah, that sounds like it.
That's pretty much it.
And that's, I want to say that's the problem, but you know what? Evolution. As you can't raise kids the same way now as you did before the internet was around. So there is a degree of making things up that needs to get done. And you could just be a better parent, a better boss, and say, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. So yeah, making things up along the way is good. Abusing your power, I think that's probably where we're going with this. That's bad. And I could,
Well, actually, I think what the technology has done is that it has brought into our focus stuff that already existed, but we just weren't aware of it because the technology didn't show it to us before.
Yep, because snail mail was the only way to see what was happening in California.
That and long distance telephone calls. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of option beyond that. But now we're able to see stuff that, I mean, you can talk about, we're not going to get into politics, but I think it's like where everybody thinks of first when they think about this massive disconnect and fake news and all that other kind of stuff. They think, oh my God, the politics are out of control. But I have a degree in political science, and I've studied politics throughout centuries, really. And you go back to the 19th century here in the United States, what's going on now is nothing compared to what happened in the 19th century. You think this is bad? You should see the absolute bold lies that were just written to just ramp up the masses. I mean, it was just blatant, absolutely blatant.
You know what? I want to key in on that for a second and emphasize this, because I try to emphasize it as much as I can, because you have to see better in order for things to be better. government policies, rules, and regulations. Everybody hates them. We're at our all-time high. This is the worst. No, this is not the worst. They were
No.
killing people.
Oh,
Back in the
yes.
day, I'm talking about
Yeah.
AD 100, 200,
Sure.
500. Yo, people were getting killed for way less, and more people were getting killed. So, though it
And
does
in
need
certain areas
to
of the planet, that's actually happening right now.
exactly, and
Yeah.
that's another thing. So it's like it is getting better. It's still screwed up. I'll admit that,
Mhm.
and that's why we do what we do. That's why the show exists. But we are at the best we've been as far as mankind. Because let me tell you, we started off in savage mode. We started off in savage mode. You ever seen
No.
Apocalypse Now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That movie, they was just take him to the top of the pyramid, chop the head off, and see if we get some rain. What the heck? They, it's so we are at the best.
That's about, I think, where I walked on the movie. I mean,
that was like the first 10 minutes.
I didn't see the whole movie. What could I say?
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so we're a lot better. And the reason we're a lot better is because of like technology and detective work. That's why people stopped killing people as much, because they were getting caught and put in jail. Otherwise, it would still be happening. It wasn't humans becoming better humans. It was technology making people stop killing each other, and then less. And then through the generations, you got nicer and nicer kids being born. And now, then you had the hippies. And now I think I think the future generations are going to be way more meditative by nature than
I think there's another factor. I mean, I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm just saying that I think there's another factor. I think the other factor is again, it's the technology bringing to the fore stuff that we didn't know about before. When you have a relatively isolated population, it's a lot easier for a strong man to dominate it. When the population becomes more connected, it's a lot harder for a strong man to dominate it.
Yeah.
Because everybody becomes aware and they're all talking and they're all sharing. They say, whoa, this blah, 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 blah. And because of that, I think it's probably fair to say that there were probably just as many kind-hearted people, say 50 or 100 years ago, as a percentage of the overall population as there are today. It's just we didn't know about it. Why? Because they were isolated.
You know what's crazy? I'll give a quick example of that. I'm not going to name any names, but there was a ruler in New Jersey that was going to run for president. And the problem was everybody in Jersey hated him. He was terrible to Jersey, but everyone in the country thought we loved him.
I think I know who you're talking about too, but I won't say it.
So he almost made it to president until he got caught in one of his scams, and now he's still doing his thing.
Right.
I think his initials are CC.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So yeah, everybody moved. Like when I first moved to Florida, everybody talked so highly of him, but they didn't know any specifics. And when I started telling people, yo, we hate him, all of us. Like, he screws us daily.
Well, it's not. I mean, he did
levels.
win the governorship. He had some people who liked him. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but they were all rich people. Everybody else who made less than $200,000 a year,
yeah, I hear you,
hated this man. So it was like, and it was worse than Trump. So yeah, but once everything got big and they got wind, because he was gonna go and he was gonna be president. He was going, I don't know what the hell he was gonna do, but it wasn't gonna be good. So that's just an example of what technology has done. So though internet may have screwed our youth up a little bit, it's brought us together in ways that we wouldn't.
I think it's producing. I mean, it's uncomfortable, like so many things where there's change. It's uncomfortable to deal with all this stuff. But I really do honestly believe. I mean, we look at people complaining about fake news and all that kind of thing, but the way that technology is bringing out the essence of what the claims are and showing where there is or there is not evidence to support that, the more that happens, that basically is how people are educating themselves. It's how they're learning how the world works.
What do they call it? Defunking or debunking?
Debunking in a sense. Well, it's not just debunking, it's rethinking.
Well, that's the most important part.
That's really what it is. It's rethinking. It's thinking about it differently. And when you do that, it takes time. It's not quick. But over time, what happens is, well, first of all, that's how you get to acceptance. That's how you get to the point where you can actually appreciate something that you absolutely despise, which is a really hard thing to do. And I'm not saying that we're anywhere near that as a society. We got a long way to go on that one. But that's the general direction. We're heading more and more toward, because the more that this stuff becomes clear and available to people through technology, the more they start to shift on it in little tiny incremental steps.
This is so crazy. I think especially because it's backwards. I don't know if it'll work. You tell me. Does my shirt read backwards to you?
No, it's forward. You got it right.
Forward.
Yep.
Right,
You're not getting that reverse image. No.
I'll do it this way then. The filter. I'm going to make you look at me through a different filter.
Okay.
There it is. If everything you can't see me because it's blurry.
He's showing you, basically he's showing us one of these templates that you use for making the thing, and it's everything's backwards. It's all written backwards.
Because I'm doing the t-shirts now. This is actually one of them, and you peel it out, and this is what's left over. But it serves as a perfect, like, what we do. We want to put this law of attraction, stay positive lens over your eyes, so you see everything in life through the lens of thoughts become things. Let me not be negative about my car's not running this week, or how my boss is acting this week, because thoughts become things. That's like a perfect, like, analogy.
A little metaphor. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, that's very good. Now, Jeffrey has a question for us. Okay, he says, how do we avoid being manipulated? Want to take a crack at it?
It's the cheat code. Whatever it is you want, just like see it as though you already had it, and then be thankful for it. So however you want to word being anti-manipulable or whatever you want to say, however you want to word it, just keep saying that affirmation. You say it 10 times. You might not see it or believe it the first 5 times, but by 6 or 7, you're going to start, your mind, your subconscious will start to entertain you being stronger in that area mentally. Now, as far as manifesting actions, manifesting your spouse to stop manipulating you, let's say that's the situation, it's the same thing. I'm so happy and thankful that he or she's a great person, that they're looking out for me, that they want the best for me, they give me good advice. Being thankful for someone giving you good advice is the total opposite of them manipulating you, I think, in some ways. So it's not the total opposite.
Well, it's certainly a long ways away from it. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So I would go about it that way. At the end of the day, you can always step yourself out of any situation, turn your back and say, wait a minute. Thoughts become things. I'm in control of what's happening next according to where I spend my mind space. So instead of that person manipulating me, I'm going to see them in the wall. Remember the wall? I'm going to see them on the other side of the wall as being good to me, being kind to me, and looking out for me. And then now what you're going to have to do is, action-wise, you have to be that to them. You have to be kind to them. You have to look out for them, all that other stuff. Even if it's just a phone call, hey, just checking up on you. I haven't heard from you in a while, or whatever it is. I was thinking about you today. I just wanted to throw some positivity your way. That don't hurt. For you to text your spouse, I don't care how mad your spouse is at you for whatever reason. If you text him or her that in the middle of the day, I mean, what are they going to do?
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that.
Leave me alone.
I'm going to say something else about manipulation in a moment, but I wanted to, while it's still fresh in my thoughts, you mentioned the wall, which of course was the topic that we talked about last Friday. And I wanted to let you know that episode is getting listened to like crazy. That one's like, it's 20-30% in terms of number of people listening to it, 20% to 30% higher than equivalent shows at this point in time. So after a week's worth of listening.
You know what I attribute that to? You remember the last thing I said? I said, I think this is the best episode we've done together.
Oh, well, yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Law of attraction, baby. Yeah, it worked.
Yeah. Something else I wanted to say about manipulation. To me, the most, and I loved what you said, by the way. I think it's absolutely perfect. But the thing I like to remember where manipulation is concerned is the first step really with dealing with or even avoiding manipulation is to recognize the manipulation. That's the first thing you have to do, because it's so easy to not notice that it's even going on.
And you're getting manipulated.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one, man, because if you're gullible, and a lot of people are, just own it, and your spouse is slightly a manipulator, you may be in a constant state of manipulation for years.
It's possible. But again, that's where data comes in. That's why I'm so high on the fact that we've got this technology that, yeah, it's shoving in our faces all this stuff that we don't like, but by the same token and in the same way, it's also feeding us information about it. And the more information you get, the more you begin to realize it's kind of like what's happening right now. I'm going to take a world event and talk about. We don't really go into world events very often, but this is like a good time to do it. So we have a war going on between Russia and Ukraine right now, and what's going on in Russia itself, and has been going on for about 15 to 20 years now, is the propaganda has been really hot and heavy from Putin and the people in charge, and they have essentially excluded all opposing viewpoints. They've in fact, in many cases, they've killed off opposing viewpoints. So there's only one official message getting through to the population. And that has created kind of what you'd expect from any kind of propaganda like that. It has created a like-minded population. They all agree, yep, we need to go to war in Ukraine. The West is tearing us apart, blah, 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 blah. All the stuff that they're being told. But, and here's where the big but is, despite the fact that Russia has officially blocked Western channels, they've limited news sources and so forth, there's one thing they haven't been able to block, and that's their own information. And in their own information, one of the things that the population is hearing is we're losing ground in Ukraine. And that creates a disconnect. So even though they have no other information coming in, they've got that bit. And they say, well, wait a minute, we're bigger than they are. We've got more army. We've got more army. How could we possibly be losing? And in fact, you know where most of the criticism is coming from? It's coming from what they call the mill bloggers, which are the pro-military Russian bloggers who are totally in Putin's corner, who have been lambasting him for screwing up this whole campaign. So even within their very tightly closed little circle, they've got discontent going on.
I'm surprised he let them blogs exist.
But they have to, because that's part of how he has his control. He needs that's true for any tyrant. Any tyrant needs to have a support group, and the mill bloggers are among his major support group. But now his own support group is feeding on him.
Yeah, they all gonna disappear soon.
Well, they're not gonna disappear, but they're creating an untenable situation. Let's put it that way, one that's going to have to break in some way. But the point is that even when you have a completely controlled space, no matter how information gets out, it does get out, and it starts to shift the way people think about things. So you take, even in that extreme situation, there's going to be, and already is, change happening. Now look at what happens across the world with the modern technology and the internet and all the flow of information and so forth. That's why we're experiencing all this crazy fake news, blah, 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 all the stuff that people don't like. But it's also why we're getting this massive amount of information. Often we complain about it being too much. We can't handle all the information. But there's this mass amount of information coming in, and people, no matter what they believe, no matter what they think, no matter what prejudices they've got, it doesn't matter. They're being affected by it.
Yeah.
You can't avoid that
information in. Yeah. Process it. So
getting back to the question of manipulation, you eventually find out. You eventually figure it out. You eventually get enough data to say, wait a minute, what's going on here?
I know they ain't doing. I know that, That's what you get from a TikTok video. You're like, wait a minute, my spouse does that. My spouse does that too. Am I being manipulated? But
so really, that going back to the question that Jeffrey raised, how do we avoid being manipulated? The first step is recognizing it, and then once you recognize it, there are a myriad number of steps you can take. It just depends on what your situation is and which one's going to work best for you from your perspective. The main thing is, can you notice it?
Walt, how do you feel about verbally confronting your manipulator? Because they're going to be in defense mode.
I think my first question is, what do you hope to gain from the confrontation?
From cease and desist, all that manipulation. Let's say it's your spouse. You're not going nowhere. You're not going to end the marriage because you guys are doing pretty good.
Oh, you might.
But I need you to stop that. And which means I'm going to have to bring it up to you because you might not even notice you're doing it because you've been doing it to people your whole life because your parents did it to you. So
then in that situation, if I feel like I need to express it, and I do think that kind of communication is important. If I feel like I need to express something like that, then I ask for a little conference, a little conversation. we need to talk. Those 4 dreaded words. We need to talk.
I like that because it puts people, whoa, what the
Mhm.
hell? And then you hit them
Mhm.
with the lightness. So you hit them with the head. It's like hitting them with the bad news and the good news.
Yeah. And then basically bringing it up in as low key a voice as you can. In other words, take the emotion out of it and say, look, I'm not here to judge it. I'm simply here to say, this thing that's going on, I don't like it. And I want you to know that I don't like it. And now it's not who's right and who's wrong. It's I'm expressing to you how I'm feeling.
I want to throw something on this, but I also want to start off by saying you got to be good. You got to
Well,
be
it's practice. It takes practice to do that. It's not easy to do that. Let's be honest.
No. What I'm about to suggest, you have to be really, really good, like damn near a real detective, not like
Oh,
fake,
I see.
not like you've been watching Lifetime movies for the past 10 years. No, I need you to really think this out. I've been in situations like this, and what I did was, this was in the past, but I would manipulate that person in the same way that they did me.
Kind of
So
mirror.
then 2 weeks later, a week later, whatever, when I hit my breaking point, when I do bring it up and they're like, I don't do that. I'm like, well, remember when you asked me to go to the coffee shop and I said this, and then you said that and I said that, and then everything was cool. And then they're like, oh yeah, you manipulated me. And I can think of examples where I've kind of done that too. So it's kind of like it does the argument for you. But like I said, if you're going to set up a situation and manipulate that person proactively, you got to be good because you don't want to get caught. And it's a slippery slope morally on what's happening at this point, and it could go 85 different ways.
Well, that's why I like to stay away from anything that involves pointing fingers and blame. Who's right and who's wrong, because that's where the slippery slope is. The moment that somebody is saying this, I'm right and you're wrong, is the moment that you're now sliding into argument territory.
Yeah, fight or flight.
Fight or flight. But if you can limit it to this is how I feel about it, there's no argument about what your feelings are. You're feeling what you're feeling. Your feeling isn't right or wrong. It's your feeling. If you don't like X, it just means you don't like X. You have every right in the world to not like X, even if everybody else likes X. If you don't like X, it's up to you. It's okay. You do not have a right to like. You do not have a requirement to like X just because everybody else does, or you don't have a requirement to dislike X just because you like it. It's what you like or what you dislike. It's up to you. And
my
that's
only
beyond
problem
dispute.
with that is when people are like, "Oh, you shouldn't feel that way because ... and they're like, "I still feel that way." You know what I mean? And then that's where
I do know what you mean.
a lot of arguments go in that direction, and they just get stubborn. Nobody wants to budge. Rock in a hard place.
That's where I say to somebody who's trying to pull that on me, that's pointing fingers. That's saying I'm right and you're wrong. And that's why I try to avoid shooting all over the place.
There you go. Shooting all over yourself.
Yeah. Please don't shit on me.
Yeah, it is. I'm trying this into.
Yeah, this is Jeffrey following up on his questions. Let's read it. He says, I'm tying this in. This he's referring to is what he said in his previous line. He says, can we say that since we are authentic, we only attract authenticity? And then he follows up by saying, I'm tying this into the authority question from earlier. Are we conditioned to be manipulated in certain ways? I think the answer is yeah, of course we are.
Definitely. The school system is pure manipulation.
School system, well, most parenting, let's be honest, is manipulation.
And I was going to say, and most of that's, because of how they were raised, but no, parenting is manipulation.
I'm taking a dance class right now.
Right from wrong.
The instructor in the dance class is a young woman in her 30s. She's got 2 small children at home. And she was asked a question by one of the students in the class. And she started by saying no. And then she stopped herself. He said, you got to forgive me. I have 2 young kids at home. I say no all day long. And this just came out by reflex.
Conditioning is kind of necessary in certain areas. Jail. You get sent to jail to condition your butt not to do that again, or else you're coming back here with us. So which I don't agree with the jail system, by the way, but conditioning is just
I'm curious about that because I have doubts about it as well. But let's get to that in a moment. Finish what you're talking about here.
I was done because I do want to get into the jail thing.
Let's talk about that. I really do think that's a very interesting topic. What did you have in mind when you said that there are problems?
Well, I mean, if I do something wrong and then you lock me up and put me in a cage, which is going to screw me up mentally to where I come out, I'm more screwed up in the head, so I'm more likely to do something wrong because we're animals. We're not meant to be locked down like that. For two, the world has changed around me. So I'm not only was I'm set up to fail, regardless of my skin color, because life has gone on. My cousin went to jail. He got out and didn't know what Wi-Fi was.
Wow, yeah.
I still can't convince her. He'd be like, my Wi-Fi don't work. I'm like, dude, you're in the car. That's not how it works. And he argues with me about this. Literally, he argues with me about
that's so
it. I'm
sad.
trying to explain to him that Wi-Fi stays at your house.
Yeah.
So, and then you got a record. Even harder for you to get a job and succeed. It's going to be hard for you to get a job at McDonald's, let alone a job making good enough money to live in a better neighborhood.
I'm with you.
Now you're living a crappier life. You're behind on the times. People are looking at you as a criminal. You can't make as much money as everybody else, but guess what? You can go sell some weed and make more than that doctor.
Yeah, that's true.
And take the risk. And then you're back in there again. So it's so many different levels that I don't support the prison system. But my main thing is caging someone. I'm not saying, I got the answers to everything, but putting someone in a cage is not going to make them a better person.
There's a very interesting quote from Abraham Hicks on this subject. I want to share it here. This is excerpted from a workshop they did in Chicago in 1999. So this is from a few years ago. But what they said was, "It is your rules that make unlawful beings. You would get along better if you would just trust each other to treat each other appropriately, but you don't. And so you keep making laws until you make criminals of everyone." What do you think?
I love the second half, the whole just trusting it. I mean, obviously that's not a good plan because people would just be stealing from people, but that's because of how the system is designed.
Well, they also answered it in the quote, because in the quote they said, because you don't believe it. You don't believe it would work.
But you know what? Me and my friend were talking about the riots when they were stealing stuff, and I told him, I said, if I was down there, I might grab me a Gucci watch. I was just messing around. So he's like, but why? I don't understand why they're doing it. I don't know. Mind you, he makes $240,000 a year. It's roughly $8,000 a month just in your account. So it's it's like before taxes. So it's like
before taxes,
because I
love how you threw that one in there. That's
had to, because he's gonna be see this. He's like, I make $8,000. Or how much you make before tax? Okay, but that's not take home. So anyway, so I told him, I said, listen, the only reason they want these things is because they're so inaccessible to them on a daily basis. Now they have an opportunity to go get them. I'm a firm believer that there's no t-shirt in the world that should cost more than $20. I don't care if it's Louis Vuitton. I don't care if it's Gucci. Now, if you were to find a way to make that pop, let's say Louis Vuitton shirt costs $20 and a normal white t-shirt costs 50 cents. I can see that, but to make that t-shirt $600, it's so inaccessible to where someone's rioting for a cause all of a sudden sees that store's broken into and that t-shirt's just laying there, the one they've wanted their whole lives, and the system is designed to keep them in a lower enough pay grade to where they could never afford it. Take away that feeling of I could never have that had we not been rioting right now. Let me go get it. Take away that. And you reduce some things. I'm not saying it's going to change the world, but you'll reduce the way people see things and the way they act in those situations.
It raises a very important question then, because I think this gets to the root of it. How do you take that feeling away?
You got to change the price of all that. I look, if I was the president, I would be like, there's not going to be a t-shirt on this planet that costs more than $20, or not on America that costs more. That just ain't going to happen. That's it.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm sympathetic to it, but I also have a question that goes along with it, because that's basically coming up with an externality in order to solve a problem. And one of the things we've talked about a lot here on the show is that whenever we look to trying to solve a problem through externalities, it usually backfires. We
You
find
gotta
that
go to the root.
we got to go. Well, you have to go internally. That's what we usually end up concluding. You have to go inside to make the change instead of making the change outside.
But when it deals with finances and commerce, how internal can you go with it? The gas,
The question right there. That's
the
it.
price
That's the
of
question.
gas and the price of a slice of bread. You can drop them down the equivalent, equal percentage. I don't think a gallon of gas shouldn't cost more than $1. It shouldn't. A loaf of bread shouldn't cost more than $1. Now, if you were to reduce the percentage of everything down to where it's accessible to everybody, then you lower the want level, the lack feeling, the stressful, depressing lack feeling dramatically in the headspace of a country or a world or whatever the situation is. So
what you're really talking about is changing purchasing power.
Because
it really doesn't matter what the numbers are. I mean, if a
purchasing power, because it could be rubles, it could be pesos.
It doesn't matter what the number is. How much can you purchase with what you're able to make?
Making it accessible.
And that, I'll tell you what, that's a topic that bothered me long before I learned about law of attraction. In fact, law of attraction, when I learned about it, that was one of the things I stumbled over. Like, okay, so how is this going to work? And even to this day, I still kind of stumble at times about it. But what I keep coming back to is the same thing over and over again. And it's not a totally satisfying answer, because I still try to look for ways to fix the externalities too. But the answer I keep coming back to is, but somehow those of us who are at the lower end of the spectrum in terms of income, we got to find some way to shift our mindsets.
Yeah, well, definitely you know what? I'm gonna go back and co-sign on what you said earlier, because screw dollars and pesos and the price of bread. If we all got on the right mindset, we would manifest all that crap to fix it.
Yeah.
So back to what you were saying earlier, there is a deeper level of where you can go to fix these.
And it's not easy to get to, because you're dealing with the day-to-day of how the hell am I going to pay the rent?
That's why you need tokens. Something like a poker chip in your pocket to remind you, one, I paid rent every month that I thought I wasn't going to. I made it. I'm still alive. I'm good. But for two, I'm just going to say thank you 10 times.
Yeah.
Just be thankful for something in this moment.
Gratitude and appreciation are huge. I'll tell you honestly, because I've told the story many times about how Louise and I had the crash and burn with the 2008 financial crisis. Both our businesses getting completely wiped out with a stroke of a pen, practically. And the terror that went along with that as we went deeper into debt and lost all our savings and everything. And then we had to climb out of that, because it doesn't just go away just because you had this bad thing this bad thing happened. Now all of a sudden you got to deal with it day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute.
Real quick, can I ask you something? I just want to cut him so I don't forget. Have you ever went back and analyzed where your headspace was at in the weeks and months before this sudden? Because because for me, in that situation, let's say I had a complete wipeout where life just crashed on me. I analyze it. And
in fact, it ties in perfectly with exactly what we were just talking about. I can lay it out for you real simple. Remember how I talked about how I was concerned for years about purchasing power and how the monetary system works and all that? Guess when I was most focused on that? I'll give you one guess.
Right in the boom, right before the boom.
Leading up to it, I was writing articles. I had a website that I was writing stuff about, and I was doing it in the 3 to 4 year period leading up to the 2008 financial crisis. I even predicted that the crisis was going to happen accurately, but I had no resources left that I could even take a bet that would have helped to, overcome it. Sure. I was in such a mindset that I was undermining myself every step of the way.
The crash was in January.
No, it was in September. It was in September.
When the stock market crashed?
Well, the stock market crashed the following December and January, but the financial crisis happened in September. That's when the big bank fell and all that other stuff. Yeah.
Right in January, I think January 6th was the day when shit hit the fan.
Well, don't confuse January 6th with the insurrection at the Capitol, because that was also January 6th.
No. When the market crashed,
okay.
I was heavily trading in Forex, and
you were.
I was day trading basically just a couple stocks. Like I like Intel, INTC, and I
Mhm.
did, but I was doing a lot of Forex.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I had 3 or 4 screens open.
Oh, you were really going at it.
I had Fibonacci set up with triggers that I'll be
Holy
sleeping
crap.
at my desk, and at 3 in the
You
morning,
got you and I got to talk sometime. I'm serious. We got to have a conversation about that. But go ahead.
dude, I saw it coming, and so I destroyed it and made like 6 grand quick
Did you
and
really?
easy. I shorted. I saw what was coming, and in the
Wow.
charts, on the monthly chart, on the 1 hour, daily, weekly, I was all into that. Had all the charts open, and I had the the moving averages all set up. And once it hit my triggers at 3 or 4 in the morning, I was up. I wanted to hit click. I didn't want to set limit orders. I wanted to look at stuff
Just
real quick and
market
click
orders
it
right there.
myself.
Yeah.
And so I did that and made like a quick 6 grand. Got out
So
right
you were
before
one of the few who
Christmas.
actually made money on it. Congratulations.
I got out right before Christmas, had a great Christmas, and then January 6th, I think it was, when the market just said boom, and I was like, dude, I should have took a short position and just chilled, because I like shorting.
Shorting is dangerous, but it's fun.
Yeah, when you know the market's crashing, short. That is, it is what it is. A market exploding, like Bitcoin going up, you couldn't really tell when it was going to happen. I bought Bitcoin at $14,000, and it took 8 months for it to skyrocket. So it's really hard to tell when things are going up. But when something's about to fall because the CEO of Apple gets diagnosed with cancer, you already know. Not trying to capitalize on someone else's, but you already know what's getting ready
was
to
sad
happen.
when the news about Steve Jobs came out. That was really sad.
Yeah. And then Apple stock fell from $168 to $96 in 5 minutes. If you had took a short position of $3, $10, you would have made enough to go to
retire.
Yeah. No, I mean, not with $3, but
not with $3, but yeah. Well,
if you were doing margin,
on,
I mean,
if you leverage it, probably could
leverage
have.
that, you'd have been real good.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to touch on this before we get out of here. I know I said I don't believe in the jail system. When I was a cop, I used to lock people up. I never believed in the jail system, but I did believe in a pension and a paycheck, So I did what I did, but I didn't lock people up. I hated writing tickets, and I didn't lock people up for BS stuff unless I absolutely had to. That was one of my biggest things. 2 of my biggest things, I never wanted to punch somebody, because being a cop, you shouldn't have to punch nobody. All you're gonna do is break your hand, or you're damage your hand or something like that. Why are you punching? Police Academy teaches you how to do it more effectively.
How to subdue without resorting to something
like that. I mean, punching, you see how many in a boxing match they get punched in the face for 12 rounds. Who wants to do that in the streets?
Yeah.
Find a arm lock that's going to end this immediately.
Right.
So I never punched anybody my entire police career.
Good for you, by the way.
And I didn't want to write tickets, so I wrote tickets to as few people as possible. And I just wanted to make sure overall that I was good. I wanted to make sure that everybody I locked up was saying thank you by the time we were done with our interaction.
Wow. That's a heck of a goal.
It is hard, but the more you work at it, it happens sooner in the transaction. I got to the point where people were thanking me on the way to jail, and because you just got to let them know this doesn't mean you're a bad person. This just means you made a bad decision.
You crossed the line. Yeah.
Yeah, you just made a bad decision. You could be a bad person, but what we in the car for right now, going to the police station, unless it was something they did, like shoot somebody or something like that, But I try to talk to people and let them know, we all humans, and all that good stuff makes you a good cop. It makes you better at your job, so you don't take stuff home. I never took my work home. My dad never brought being a cop home. Never. When I started up, everybody thought I knew everything about being a cop. It's like everybody thought my dad was coming home and training me every day to be a cop.
Right. Yeah.
No, that is not. He never even talked about it. Like all the stuff I learned in the academy, that was the first time I was hearing it. I had never fired a gun until I was in the academy. So yeah, it was an experience.
But in one sense, he actually was training you in one sense, because I'm sure his influence led to you treating prisoners exactly that way.
He trained me to not bring it home, not let it affect me, to still take my family and have fun no matter what happened there.
But also when you had a perp in the back of your car, I'm sure the way you treated that perp was influenced by the way your father treated you at home.
Yeah, definitely, because I was a perp at home, you know.
Were you really?
I was getting in trouble. I was always grounded. I was just like missing curfew. I had a problem with missing curfews, and when I missed curfew, he would back it up 1 hour. Now, I remember my senior year, there was a point where my curfew was 7:00 at night. And you know, when your curfew gets backed up, you're probably gonna miss it even more. So yeah, I was in trouble a lot for that, for missing curfew. But I just like to play, man. I like to play ball. I was in the streets throwing the football until we couldn't see the ball anymore.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Yeah.
You just get caught up in it.
But the beauty of it is he gave you, I mean, that cute story aside, he actually gave you the knowledge and the appreciation of seeing the good side of people, which is it's a real accomplishment for any police officer to do, because you're dealing with all this really lousy side of life on a daily basis. But when you can not only bring home the beauty of it, the beauty of life, the beauty of people, but also instill that in your children, that's the greatest gift you can give.
That's how I try to roll with my kids.
Yeah.
My dad had a really unique ability. I didn't see none of my friends' parents do this.
Really?
He had a really unique ability to, like, if he saw someone at work doing something, or anybody in the neighborhood, the apartment manager, he was just like, I don't mess with you no more, which was half of it. Like, I'm just not gonna mess with you because you be doing some stuff that I don't agree with, and I don't want people to see us together. Like, I'm not gonna mess with you. But the second half was, I'm not gonna let what you just did affect my house at all.
Nice. Yeah.
Because I've seen him in situations, you know, most of my family's in the hood, so we were always back in the hood. I've seen him off duty, had to do stuff off duty. I've seen him. We had a butthole apartment manager when we were living in Collingswood. I've seen the way he dealt with that person, you know, got to deal with their BS and then turn around and come in the house with the energy. I'm an empath. I've always been an empath. When you could walk in the door and that conversation is not on the forefront of your mind, but it's gone. It's not in your body. It's not even in your demeanor.
Right.
That's him. And he still does that.
That's the skill. That's the skill that we're all talking about here when we're trying to learn how to be more mindful, how to stay in that better mind space and shift when we're in a bad space, and how do we deal with negative energies and so forth. That's exactly what we're talking about. What you just laid out there so beautifully.
I was talking with somebody the other day about how to exactly do this. And my answer was, I kind of, in my mind, I turn my back on it. And there's two ways to do it. You can say, man, F that, you know, but I encourage you to say the whole word. Man, you got to say it real, like, man, F that. Like it's rolling off your shoulders. And if that doesn't work, add one simple word that will wraps up all the different angles of that subject all in one, and allows me to let it brush off my chest like a drop of water. Just and that's the word all. I'm like, man, F all that. And when I say that, everything that problem encompassed, every part of my life that it's reaching out and touching, just got wiped away. And I know it's a lot easier said than done, but it ain't gonna get done unless you say it.
But that's mindset. that is mindset combined with determination. I'm drawing the line right there. That's it. Yeah.
Letting go is a huge part of life, bro.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Whether it be a death in the family, a bad paycheck, a bad grade in school, a bad conversation, letting go is such a huge part. Some Facebook user wrote something about toxic. It's the only word I see right now because my screen is split.
It says, sounds like you were a bright light in a very toxic environment.
Yeah, I think we all are a bright light in a very toxic environment. You know, not to discredit what you're saying, but I think that the world around us has always been a toxic environment. I mean, think about the dinosaur ages. There was dog eat dog. Everybody was just killing each other to survive.
Well, yeah, we get the idea.
Yeah, it's all toxic. You know, the trees, there's certain plant. You know, life is toxic, and we all got to be our own bright lights. And it's all about how aware you are of that light will determine how much you shine. Because everybody's shining just a little bit at least. But for those of us like us doing this show, we're out here trying to shine as bright as we freaking can, giving the best knowledge that we can to help that flame spread, brighten up the other lights. So I appreciate you, Facebook user.
I love
Click the thing so we can see your name.
Yeah, right. I love that. And I love what you're saying there about that bright light, because part of what we're learning to do is to allow that light. You were talking about letting go. One of the best words I heard this week was release. It was used in the context of losing weight. The guest said instead of losing weight, it's release weight.
I like that.
Isn't that good?
I like that. Release negative. And as soon as you said that, I'm like, I applied it to 90 different things. Release areas, release negative, releasing the tension and muscles
Yeah.
and back,
Yeah.
as opposed to getting rid of or solving or fixing.
Release it.
That.
Yeah.
I love that, because the grasp takes muscle and letting go. So in essence, relaxing is your answer.
Yeah.
And who wouldn't want relaxing to be the answer to their problem?
Well, no wonder meditation works so well, because that's what meditation is all about. It's about
full
relaxing.
circle, baby.
Yeah.
It always comes back full circle. But that's why I love, bro. That's the reason why I love the law of attraction and why I connected with it immediately. Every scenario I threw at it came back full circle.
Right. It's
there
true.
were no unanswered questions.
It's actually spooky how often it happens. Truly. It really is. It's like, oh my God, it just happened again. That's the feeling that I get every time I experience it.
There's a part of us I don't think will fully be able to ever explain that until we transcend from this vessel, this flesh suit. And that right there is another form of, I'm just going to let this go.
Release
and
it.
Enjoy it. Because that's the only way to enjoy it, is to let it go. Because if you're chasing that answer, anything you chase will run from you. You're stressing, you're feeling the lack of the answer, that tension, all that other stuff. So once again, it comes back full circle again, because the only way to truly enjoy this is to let that elusive answer go.
And something else I like about the word release. I don't know if this is the way it feels to you, but when I think of that word release, to release is an intentional activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very, very intentional. Letting go is a little bit vaguer. Release, it's very specific. You know, I'm putting it down and I'm taking my hand away. That's a release.
You know, I want to throw this on top of that as like a little bit of salt and pepper on top of that. In life, visually, we have such tight holds on things. We cherish and hold on to our job. It's what feeds us. We hold on to our kids. We don't want anything to bad happen to them, and we start enabling them. We hold on to the notion that our car is going to keep running this week. The lights, the weather in Florida, we got hurricanes. All these things we're holding on to constantly in our minds. The thought of a release is just relaxing.
Yeah.
So throw that onto the whole hand pressure, and you got yourself a formula for greatness if you can wake the hell up from what's going on in your life and do these mental exercises.
Well, you also you have a way to manifestation too, because that's when the manifestations show up.
Gotta do the work though.
You gotta the only way to get there.
Do the work, and it's like jogging. You can't stop.
Isn't it so odd though? Isn't it so odd that the hardest work you have to do is to release? I mean, seriously, that's pretty odd.
The toughest thing a man can do is release his mind and just stop stressing. It's funny, man. Life is so, I guess, ironic. Man.
It is, yeah.
Two sides to every coin, man.
Certainly,
two sides to every coin. The biggest thing holding us back is we can't let go. Let go of our past. Let go of old narratives. Let go of, oh my goodness.
Well, there's at least one we can do. One thing we do very easily when we recognize that we have trouble letting go, at least we can laugh at it. That's a good thing. That's a way to help encourage us to release in the first place.
And that's a great form of letting go too.
It is.
You know, laughter. Everyone, when you wake up in the morning, just laugh for 60 seconds. You know, it might seem silly. You might sound silly. Hopefully
it's got a name.
There.
I don't know if you know that. That's got a name. It's called laughter yoga.
Yeah, there we go. We go. Yeah, I actually had a female at one of my summits that was speaking about that. She's in the dental world. Laughter yoga.
Have you ever done it? Did you do it with her on the show or anything?
Yeah, we did it on at the summit. She had everybody. We were all for 60 seconds in the summit.
Those first 10 seconds are really strange, but
dude,
you can get there.
A bunch of in between got to that point. Like, yo, we've been doing this 37 seconds now, and it's like, yo, just keep going with it. And then I'm back in laughter for another 5 seconds before I question how I'm looking. You know,
right.
So it's like, yeah, this is another form of letting go.
It is
another form of letting go. It's critical. One of the most critical parts of life is being able to let go of things that aren't serving you. People.
No, the sad part is when we Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt that. It was good.
No, I was just gonna say notions, but go ahead.
I was just going to say that the sad part is occasionally we do have to let go of something that we like, such as when the time is up. Like, I don't want to stop.
Oh man, it's 5:09. I'm looking at this time. We've been on 59 minutes, but it's actually 5:09 because we started late. But yes, yeah, let's get out of here, man. Thanks to all my military and first responders. Shout out.
And by the way, you inspired me. You helped me to remember to say that to Vic, the New York Police Department officer, when he was on Monday. So your little reminder helped me too. I totally agree with you on that. And thank you. I want to say something that I know I said to you last week. I've said to guests lately. I want to say it to listeners too, because it occurred to me they deserve it as well. Because listeners who are regular listeners are also givers. So there are, yeah, exactly. So to all of you listeners who have been listening all these years and then sharing your energy, you've been touching people in ways that they aren't even aware of, and that you may not even meet or see them in some cases. That's quite possible. So on their behalf, thank you for all the ways that you're helping to spread that energy throughout the world. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.